25 stupid car features that were absolute disasters. You know what is wild? Some of the most expensive, most hyped features in automotive history were complete and total disasters. Not just bad, not just unpopular, we are talking about features that broke constantly, confused drivers, caused accidents, and in a few cases nearly killed the companies that built them. Engineers who should have known better, executives who signed off anyway, millions of customers were left holding the bill. Some of these will make you laugh, some will make you furious, and stick around for number one. It will genuinely shock you that anyone ever called it a good idea. These are the 25 stupidest car features that were absolute disasters. Number 25, Ford Edsel push-button gear shifting, 1958. Ford's Edsel was already struggling when it launched. The styling divided people, the marketing was overhyped, and the timing was terrible. But nothing summed up the Edsel's disaster better than its gear selector, a ring of buttons mounted directly in the center of the steering wheel hub. Park, reverse, neutral, drive, low, all were crammed into the one thing your hands are supposed to be gripping at all times. Every shift meant looking down while actively steering. The electrical mechanism inside the column failed constantly from heat and vibration. Repairs cost $350 on a car that sold for $2,500. Ford pulled it after 1 year. The Edsel itself lasted 2 more years before Ford killed the entire line, one of the most expensive product failures in automotive history, a $400 million lesson in how not to launch a car. Number 24, Chrysler dashboard push-button transmission. From 1956 to 1964, Chrysler moved the gear selector to a row of dashboard push-buttons that connected to the gearbox with cables. Over time, those cables stretched and went slack. After a few years, pressing a button might do nothing, or it might shift into the wrong gear entirely. The worst part was there was no park button. You needed a separate parking lever, put the car in neutral, and follow the right sequence. People forgot, and cars rolled. A Chrysler vice president even backed his own car into a wall because the button layout had changed between model years. They finally admitted defeat in 1965 and went back to a gear lever, the thing that had worked perfectly fine for decades. Number 23, General Motors air suspension, 1958. General Motors sold inflated rubber bag suspension across 5 brands: Cadillac, Buick, Oldsmobile, Chevrolet, and Pontiac. The bags leaked constantly at every connection point. In cold weather, moisture froze inside the lines, and corners of the car dropped onto the bump stops overnight. The compressor burned out regularly under the load. Most owners eventually paid out of pocket to rip the whole system out and fit conventional springs. General Motors discontinued it on most models after a single model year. The idea was not wrong. Modern air suspension works beautifully, but in 1958, the execution was a complete catastrophe from the first week of ownership. Engineers were simply decades ahead of the materials available to them. Number 22, the Ford Skyliner retractable hardtop from 1957 to 1959. A folding metal roof that disappears into the trunk sounds like genius. Ford's version used 7 electric motors, 10 relays, and 10 solenoids to perform a 40-second process that worked reliably about half the time. When it broke, the roof jammed permanently up or down until a dealer could diagnose which of the 17 components had quit. When it worked, it consumed virtually the entire trunk. You could fit one small bag if you were lucky. The car cost more than a regular convertible, broke more often, and carried less luggage. Ford killed it after 3 years. Dealers were openly relieved. The concept would eventually return as the modern retractable hardtop, but not until electronics were actually reliable enough to make it work. Number 21, vacuum-powered windshield wipers. Every major manufacturer for decades. This wasn't one brand's mistake. It was an industry-wide failure that lasted 30 years. Vacuum wipers were cheaper than electric, so GM, Ford, and Chrysler kept using them well into the 1960s. The problem was fundamental. Engine vacuum drops when you accelerate hard, in heavy rain, or when you are climbing a hill. The moment you needed visibility most, the wipers would slow to a crawl or stop entirely. Drivers learned to ease off the gas periodically just to let the wipers make a few passes. On performance cars like the Pontiac GTO, you genuinely had to choose between acceleration and seeing the road ahead. An electric motor cost almost nothing extra. The industry just didn't bother. Number 20, the Chevrolet Corvair's rear weight bias. From 1960 to 1963. The Corvair's rear-mounted engine was not automatically a problem. Plenty of great cars are rear-engined. The problem was 64% of its weight sitting over the rear wheels, combined with a swing axle suspension that could break loose mid-corner with almost no warning. Chevrolet's official fix was a specific tire pressure split, 15 pounds per square inch front and 26 pounds per square inch rear. Most owners never knew about it. Ralph Nader documented the handling characteristics in detail in 1965, triggering a safety investigation that reshaped the entire American auto industry, an engineering problem that became a political earthquake. Number 19, the Chrysler Highway Hi-Fi record player. From 1956 to 1957, Chrysler put a record player under the dashboard. It was not compatible with standard records. It required a proprietary format at 16 2/3 revolutions per minute that almost no music store stocked. Every pothole sent the needle skipping. Summer heat warped the discs so badly they would wobble on their own. The mechanism broke easily and repairs were poor. Chrysler stopped offering it after 1957, though some dealers installed leftover units on 1960 models to clear inventory. Within a few years, the 8-track arrived and made the whole concept look exactly as ridiculous as it was. Number 18, Mercury's retractable rear window. From 1957 to 1958, Mercury's Turnpike Cruiser offered a rear window that slid down into the trunk at the push of a button, supposedly for ventilation. The motor burned out frequently, leaving the window stuck open, funneling exhaust fumes, dust, and rain directly into the back seat. The mechanism ate into the trunk space passengers actually needed. Replacing the motor cost over $100 in 1957 money. Mercury offered this for exactly 2 model years, then dropped it without acknowledging it had been a terrible idea. Number 17, Buick's automatic headlight dimmer. From 1952 to 1968, Buick's Atronic Eye was supposed to detect oncoming headlights and automatically switch to low beam. Instead, it was unreliable at distinguishing between headlights, street lamps, lit billboards, or the moon. Your headlights would randomly cycle between bright and dim for no apparent reason, confusing oncoming drivers and doing nothing useful for your own visibility. The sensor degraded over time, making the behavior increasingly erratic. Most owners eventually disconnected the whole thing. Buick kept offering it for 16 years, which is perhaps the most puzzling part of the story. Number 16, the Oldsmobile portable radio. In 1960, Oldsmobile made a dashboard radio you could unclip and carry around. It weighed 9 pounds. The batteries lasted a few hours. Reception outside the car was poor. Inside the car, with the antenna connected, it worked reasonably well, except that removing it left a visible hole in the dashboard that signaled to any passing thief exactly where to break in. Almost nobody ordered it. Oldsmobile discontinued it after 1 year. It was a genuine solution to a problem nobody had. Number 15, Cadillac's Autoline automatic steering. In 1958, Cadillac developed a system to steer the car automatically by following a guidance cable buried in the road, and they charged real customers real money for the hardware. The problem was that there was exactly one road in the world with that cable, a private Cadillac test track. No public highway ever received the infrastructure. The equipment was fully functional and permanently useless to every person who bought it. Cadillac dropped it after 1 year quietly, without explanation. The dream of autonomous highway driving was real. It just needed GPS, computers, and about 60 more years of development. Number 14, the Studebaker Avanti fiberglass body. 1963. The Avanti was genuinely beautiful. It was also made from fiberglass panels that did not fit together properly, with gaps visible from across a room. The material cracked in minor accidents and was nearly impossible to color match for repairs. Panels would flex and distort in summer heat. Manufacturing was so slow that customers waited up to a year for delivery. The Avanti was supposed to save Studebaker from financial collapse. Instead, the delays and quality problems helped accelerate that collapse. Studebaker ceased American production the same year the Avanti launched. The car that was supposed to be the future arrived just in time to watch the company end. Number 13, Chrysler Imperial Air Suspension, 1958. The Imperial weighed over 5,000 pounds. The air suspension system could not cope with that load. Airlines leaked, sensors failed, and the compressor was chronically overwhelmed. When one corner gave out, that corner of the car would visibly sag. Dealers were so overwhelmed with complaints that the following year Chrysler made standard springs the default and offered customers a cash incentive not to order the Air option. That is a manufacturer paying people to refuse their own product. It remains one of the most honest admissions of failure in automotive history. Number 12. Pontiac's rubber drive shaft. 1963. Pontiac replaced the steel driveshaft with a flexible cable assembly wrapped in rubber, marketed as a smoother alternative. The cable would stretch, come partially unwound, and introduce severe vibration throughout the car. The rubber cracked with age and heat. Eventually, the cable frayed and failed entirely. Replacement required disassembling the exhaust system. It was a labor-intensive job costing around $150. A standard steel shaft would have lasted the life of the car. Pontiac's version often didn't make 2 years. Number 11. Rambler reclining seats that collapsed. 1961, American Motors marketed fold, flat front seats for road trippers who wanted to sleep in their cars. The mechanism holding the seat back upright was dangerously weak. It would fail without warning, dropping backward while driving. In a collision with the seat recline, the occupant slid completely under the lap belt, bypassing the only crash restraint in the car. The seats could not withstand even moderate impact forces. This was not a minor inconvenience. It was a structural safety failure dressed up as a camping convenience. Number 10. Lincoln retractable headlights. From 1955 to 1957, Lincoln built headlights that retracted behind flush fender panels on electric motors. Road salt and grit infiltrated the mechanisms, jamming them shut. Jammed closed meant no headlights at night. Jammed open meant motors burned out trying to force them shut, costing over $100 each to replace. Lincoln dropped the feature after 3 years of dealer complaints. It contributed nothing to safety, nothing to performance, nothing to practicality. It existed purely for showroom theater. Number 9. Mercury's typewriter keyboard control panel. In 1957, Mercury put the transmission, heater, radio, and wipers all onto a flat panel between the front seats that resembled a typewriter keyboard. There was no logical arrangement. Tiny labels were completely unlit at night. Every adjustment meant looking away from the road and hunting through identical buttons in the dark. The wiring behind the panel was extraordinarily complex, and when any button failed, diagnosing and reaching it for repair was a major undertaking. It looked futuristic in the brochure. It was a distraction machine in reality. Number 8. Chrysler early cruise control. From 1958 to 1961, the set speed would drift by 5 to 10 miles per hour as rubber hoses cracked and lost pressure. Tapping the brake would cancel the setting silently, leaving drivers thinking they were under control when they were not. In some cases, reactivating the system caused the car to surge forward unexpectedly. There was no indicator light, no way to confirm whether it was active. Chrysler rebuilt the system substantially in 1962. The original version should never have left the engineering department. Number 7. Chrysler's turbine car, 1963. Chrysler built 55 jet turbine-powered cars and handed them to ordinary members of the public. The exhaust was hot enough to melt asphalt and ignite dry grass. Throttle response had a noticeable delay between pressing the pedal and the car actually accelerating. Fuel economy was 9 miles per gallon. The engine cost 3 times as much to build as a conventional unit. Chrysler destroyed most of them to avoid import tax liabilities. 9 survive in museums today. One of the most audacious automotive experiments ever attempted and one of the most spectacularly impractical cars ever handed to a civilian. Number 6. Dodge swiveling front seats. 1959, Dodge offered seats that pivoted outward when you opened the door, supposedly making entry and exit easier. The pivot mechanism wore out quickly, leaving the seats rocking side to side while driving, a motion passengers found genuinely nauseating. The swivel raised seat height enough that taller drivers hit the headliner. In any collision, the pivot point represented a structural weakness. Almost nobody ordered it. Dodge dropped it after a single model year, apparently surprised by this outcome. Number 5. Chrysler's electroluminescent dashboard, 1960. Instead of conventional bulbs, Chrysler lit the entire instrument panel with a glowing electroluminescent sheet. When it worked, it was barely bright enough to read the gauges. When it failed, which was often, there was no dashboard illumination at all. The panel also emitted an audible high-frequency whine that many drivers found maddening on long journeys. Replacement required removing the entire dashboard. Chrysler went back to regular bulbs the following year and never mentioned it again. Number 4. Packard's torsion-level suspension motors from 1955 to 1956. Packard used electric motors at each corner to automatically level the car under varying loads. The concept was genuinely ahead of its time. The motors ran constantly and burned out under sustained use, and they cost over $500 per corner to replace. Packard was already in severe financial difficulty, and dealers began refusing to service the system. When Packard went out of business in 1958, replacement parts vanished entirely, leaving owners with permanently sagging corners and absolutely no recourse. Number 3. General Motors 4 headlight switch, 1957. Every major American manufacturer switched from 2 large headlights to 4 smaller ones. The official reason was better visibility, but the actual result was measurably less total light output. That meant 4 bulbs could fail instead of 2, and you often had to remove chrome trim just to replace them. Some states had not yet legalized 4 lamp systems, so those cars shipped with blanking covers over 2 of the 4 lights, customers paying for 4 headlights but using 2. The switch was driven almost entirely by styling trends. The industry announced it as progress, and most people never questioned it. 4 headlights looked more modern. That was the entire engineering brief. Number 2. Ford safety campaign that destroyed safety, 1956. Ford tried to sell cars on safety with padded dashboards, padded steering wheels, and optional seatbelts. They were real improvements, years ahead of regulation. The execution was flawed. The steering padding made the horn hard to press in an emergency, the foam offered limited crash protection, and almost nobody ordered the seatbelts. Then competitors told the public that if Ford needs all that safety equipment, Ford cars must be dangerous. Sales dropped sharply, Ford panicked and abandoned the campaign entirely. The lesson the whole industry took away was that safety does not sell, a conclusion that shaped automotive culture for a decade and almost certainly cost thousands of lives. Number 1. The non-collapsible steering column, every manufacturer for 50 years. This is the one. For half a century, the standard steering column was a solid steel shaft aimed directly at the driver's chest. In a frontal collision, as the engine bay compressed backward, that column had nowhere to go but through the person sitting behind it. It did not bend, it did not fold, it transferred the full force of the crash directly into the driver's body. Surgeons called it the leading cause of fatal internal injuries in automobile crashes. It was not a design oversight. Engineers understood exactly what was happening. The industry simply chose not to fix it. Collapsible columns became mandatory in the United States in 1968 after decades of documented deaths, years of lobbying, and mountains of data. The technology was not complicated. The will to act was what took 50 years to arrive. Every one of these disasters came down to the same truth. The failures were not technical, they were failures of priority. Every safety feature in your car today exists because someone paid the price for the version that did not work. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more car feature content.